It was a quiet evening in New York City. The rain had been falling for hours. Soft, rhythmic, endless. Streetlights painted the wet pavement gold, and in the distance, the city hummed its lonely song. Emily Jackson sat inside her car, staring through the windshield as raindrops blurred the world outside. She was tired, not just from work, but from the constant weight of proving herself. Every day, every glance, every unspoken doubt she met in courtrooms and meetings, all reminded her that she had to work twice as hard to be seen as equal. Tonight, though, she wanted peace. She had just finished another long day at the state attorney's office. Her briefcase rested beside her, full of files she wouldn't open until tomorrow. She loved her work, even when it drained her. Justice, to her, was not a profession. It was a purpose. She reached for her phone to text her sister that she'd be home soon. But before she could type a word, bright blue and red lights flashed behind her. Her heart skipped. She looked into the mirror. A police cruiser had pulled up. Sirens off, but lights spinning through the rain. Emily blinked in confusion. She hadn't done anything wrong. Her seatbelt was on, speed normal, license valid. Still, a familiar anxiety rose in her chest. She rolled down the window halfway as the officer approached. His boots splashed in the puddles. His flashlight cut through the dark. He leaned slightly, peering inside. "Evening, ma'am," he said in a firm tone. "Can I see your license and registration?" Emily nodded politely, reaching for her purse. "Of course, officer. May I ask what this is about?" "Just routine," he replied. But his eyes told a different story. Sharp, suspicious, sizing her up. He looked at the documents, then back at her face. "Emily Jackson," he read aloud. "State Attorney's Office?" "Yes," she answered, trying to keep her voice calm. "That's correct." He raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "You're a lawyer?" She smiled faintly. "Yes, I am." He chuckled under his breath. Not the friendly kind, but the kind that carries disbelief. "You'll forgive me if I need to verify that," Emily frowned. "You can call the number on the ID. It's all official." But the officer, Brian Collins, his name tag read, had already taken a step back toward his car, murmuring into his radio. Emily watched his silhouette through the rain, her heart pounding with an unease she knew too well. Minutes passed. He returned, flashlight still pointed toward her. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." Her breath caught. "I'm sorry, what?" "Step out, now." "Officer, I think there's been some misunderstanding." "Out of the car." His voice hardened. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she pushed the door open. The cold air hit her face, rain running down her cheeks like tears she hadn't yet shed. Brian's hand rested near his holster. "You said this car's yours?" "Yes, it's registered under my name." He circled the car slowly, checking the plates, then muttered, "We've had reports of a stolen vehicle matching this description." Emily's tone remained steady, though her pulse raced. "You can check the VIN number. You'll see it's mine." But Brian wasn't listening. His mind had already written its story. "Put your hands where I can see them," he ordered. "Excuse me? Hands up." The humiliation hit harder than fear. The sound of rain drowned her voice as she tried to reason. But he moved quickly, gripping her wrist. Turning her around, the cold metal of handcuffs snapping shut. She gasped, pain shooting through her arm. "Officer, I haven't done anything!" He ignored her. "You have the right to remain silent." People were starting to watch from nearby windows, shadows behind curtains, faces pressed against glass. To them, it was just another arrest. But to Emily, it was a storm far greater than the one falling from the sky. As he led her to the cruiser, she whispered, "This is my car. I work for the state. You're making a mistake." Brian didn't respond. He opened the back door and pushed her inside. The city lights blurred past as they drove. Red, blue, rain-soaked, and merciless. At the station, she sat in a small gray room, soaked and shivering, her wrists marked where the cuffs had bitten into her skin. Hours passed. No one spoke to her. No one asked questions. She could hear laughter from outside the room. Casual, detached, like her pain didn't exist. Then finally the door opened. A man in a suit walked in, holding a folder. He stopped the moment he saw her face. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Emily." She looked up, recognizing him instantly. Chief Officer Ramirez, head of the department's internal division. "What happened?" he demanded, turning toward Brian, who had followed behind. "She was in a car matching the stolen vehicle report," Brian explained quickly. "Didn't have proof of ownership on hand," Ramirez interrupted sharply. "Didn't have proof? Her name is on the registration!" "She's one of us. She's a state attorney." The silence that followed was heavy. Brian's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked at Emily, her eyes filled with disbelief, pain, and something even stronger, disappointment. She stood slowly, her voice quiet but firm. "You saw my ID. You had my papers. You just didn't believe they could belong to me." Her words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. Ramirez told Brian to remove the cuffs. He did so silently, his hands shaking. Emily rubbed her wrists, staring at the faint red marks left behind. When she finally spoke again, her voice was low, steady, but trembling with emotion. I've defended victims of racial injustice my whole career. Tonight I became one. Brian looked down. There was no excuse, no defense, nothing to say. Emily didn't say another word that night. She walked out of the police station slowly, her soaked coat clinging to her skin, the cold wind wrapping around her like shame. The city lights glimmered on the wet streets, each reflection whispering something cruel. That even when you do everything right, the world can still see you wrong. At home, she sat by her window, staring out into the rain that hadn't stopped since the arrest. Her hands still shook when she thought about the cuffs. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Brian's expression, not anger, but disbelief that she could ever be the owner of a car like that. For the first time in years, Emily cried, not because she was weak, but because she was tired. Tired of pretending that success could shield her from prejudice. Tired of believing that justice was blind when she'd just seen its eyes. Sharp, judgmental, and color-aware. The next morning, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The news had already broken. Black state lawyer arrested for stealing her own car. It was everywhere. Television, radio, social media. Her photo, handcuffed, drenched in rain, was the headline image. Calls came from her colleagues, from friends, from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Some expressed outrage. Some apologized for what they called a tragic mistake. But Emily knew this wasn't a mistake. It was a mirror, reflecting the truth about the system she had served so faithfully. By noon, the police department held a press conference. Chief Ramirez stood at the podium, his voice tense. We sincerely apologize to Ms. Jackson for the treatment she endured. The officer involved has been suspended pending investigation. But Emily didn't attend the conference. She sat quietly in her apartment, sipping coffee gone cold, staring at the screen as reporters dissected her humiliation. Her face had become a symbol, her story, a spark. And in that moment, she understood something she never had before. Justice wasn't just about laws. It was about humanity, and humanity had failed her. That night, Emily opened her laptop and began to write. Her words came like a storm, unstoppable, fierce, and full of truth. She wrote about the fear she felt, the shame, the disbelief. But she also wrote about hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, this pain could create change. Within hours, her open letter went viral. Thousands shared it. Tens of thousands commented. People from across the country, lawyers, activists, mothers, students, all saying the same thing. This is not just Emily's story. This is our story. A week later, she was invited to speak at a civil rights conference in Washington. She stood on a wide stage under bright lights, looking out at a sea of faces, black, white, brown, all waiting for her voice. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm, yet it carried the weight of every tear she had shed. What happened to me, she said slowly, wasn't an accident. It wasn't one man's mistake. It was a reflection of how deeply fear runs in our society. She paused, letting her words breathe in the silence. When Officer Collins saw me, he didn't see a lawyer. He saw a color. When he read my name, he didn't hear respect. He heard doubt. A murmur spread through the audience, soft, sorrowful. But I stand here tonight, she continued, not to seek revenge, not to demand punishment. I stand here because I refuse to let that moment define me. I am not what he saw. I am what I choose to be, a woman who still believes in justice. Her voice trembled with emotion, but it didn't break. The room was silent. Some wiped tears. Others simply bowed their heads. Then she said the words that would soon become a movement. Justice has no color. It has no face, no gender, no language. It is not something we see. It's something we must feel. And until every person feels it equally, justice is unfinished. The crowd erupted in applause, not the loud, chaotic kind, but the kind that comes from hearts breaking and healing at once. From that day forward, justice has no color became more than a phrase. It became a campaign. Posters, speeches, documentaries. Emily's story inspired hundreds of young lawyers and activists to take up the cause she had unknowingly started. As for Officer Brian Collins, he disappeared from the public eye. Some said he quit the force. Others said he tried to apologize. Emily never saw him again. But sometimes she thought about him. Not with hatred, but with pity. Because in that moment when he looked at her and saw only skin, he had lost something she still held. The belief in what people could become if only they chose to see beyond their fear. Years passed. The city moved on. But every time it rained, Emily would stand by her window, watching the drops slide down the glass. The sound reminded her of that night. The cuffs, the flashing lights, the cold silence. But it also reminded her of her strength. She would whisper softly to herself, "That night didn't break me. It woke me." and somewhere deep inside, she believed that every storm, no matter how cruel, eventually washes the world clean.